Hey there, this is James Carberry, founder of Sweetfish Media and one of the co-hosts of this show. For the last year and a half, I've been working on my very first book. In the book, I share the three-part framework we've used as the foundation for our growth here at Sweetfish. Now, there are lots of companies that have raised a bunch of money and have grown insanely fast, and we featured a lot of them here on the show. We've decided to bootstrap our business, which usually equates to pretty slow growth. But using the strategy outlined in the book, we're on pace to be one of Inc.'s fastest growing companies in 2020. The book is called Content-Based Networking: How to Instantly Connect with Anyone You Want to Know. If you're a fan of audiobooks like me, you can find the book on Audible, or if you like physical books, you can also find it on Amazon. Just search Content-Based Networking or James Carberry, Carbary, in Audible or Amazon, and it should pop right up. All right, let's get into the show.
Hey everybody, Logan with Sweetfish here. It's a new year and a new decade, and we're celebrating by rounding up the top 20 episodes as we look back on 2019. We'll be sharing them here throughout the month of January in our hashtag Best of 2019 series. And today's episode comes in at number 13 in our countdown of the top 20 episodes of 2019. This one is a flashback to my conversation with Brian Bell, CMO over at Ping Identity. He talked about a two-step approach to account selection for your ABM campaigns. I think very timely for folks if you're looking to up your ABM game going forward in 2020. Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. I'm your host for today's episode, Logan Lyles with Sweetfish Media. I'm here today with Brian Bell. He is the CMO at Ping Identity. Brian, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for joining us, Brian. Been really excited to record this interview with you. We're going to be talking about lessons learned from executing ABM campaigns. Before we jump into that today, I would love for you to share with listeners a little bit about your background, your journey in marketing, and also what you and the team at Ping Identity are up to these days.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do that. I've been in B2B enterprise software for a couple decades now in a variety of roles, and business development, general management roles, and very much in the world of marketing, going back to years ago at Remedy Software and Peregrine, where I ran marketing organizations. Prior to Ping Identity, I was at CA Technologies running product and solutions marketing, and then I spent some time at Zora, which is a cloud-based subscription management platform where I ran marketing and alliances as well. And now at Ping Identity, for the last 3.5 years or so, I've been running marketing and alliances here at Ping.
I love it. Scott Vaughn from Integrate and I were just talking about that best sales deck ever that's been circulating for a while from the folks over at Zora.
Yes, that was great to see, actually. It was a really phenomenal posting, I think it was on LinkedIn, that talked about that sales deck. And it was quite a journey. I mean, what was interesting about Zora was that we were defining a category. And to define that category, we had to really go out there and talk about why kind of the old way of running a business as a product-based, one-time license-based business wasn't relevant anymore, and that everything was moving to this new world. And that became the context in which we told that story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's great to see that you've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something I've tried to model in other collateral. We've put together those sorts of things. I think there's a lot of storytelling power in going broader than just the problem to solution. Here's the shift that's coming, whether you like it or not, and here are the winners and losers. What are you going to do about it? It's less of, do you want my solution versus here's what we see. What do you think about it? And ask for someone's kind of reaction. So there are a lot of things to break down there. I think there's several conversations we could jump into there as well. We have a whole series here on this show dedicated to this topic of category design and category creation. Maybe great to have you back on for that series at some point as well, Brian, given your experience there at Zora. So
absolutely happy to do that. And storytelling is so critical to that category creation. So would be more than happy to participate.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the topic today, since we are in a week full of account-based marketing episodes, I am very excited to learn from your experience in the ABM space, Brian. It seems like everybody's talking about ABM, but there can really be some different definitions. So let's back up there. We've talked to other folks about execution, about what they see moving forward in ABM, but I would love for you to take a second and tell listeners, at least from your perspective, being a seasoned marketer, how do you define ABM?
Great question. And it was one that actually when we started down this journey at Ping, we're asking ourselves because everyone had a slightly different definition of it. To some folks, it was one-to-one marketing, and to others, it was really just a more generic, personalized approach to marketing. And, I take a fairly broad definition to it. I think account-based marketing is a strategic approach. So it's not a tactical campaign. It's a strategic approach that coordinates personalized marketing and sales efforts, sales motions to essentially open doors and deepen engagement within an account. And there's a few things in that definition that I think are important. One is it's strategic, right? So it's not a campaign. It's actually an approach to how you're going to tackle the market and engage with accounts. It is, secondly, personalized, right? So content-based messaging for maximum relevancy and resonance within the accounts is very important. It is marketing and sales together, and this is probably one of the most important dimensions of account-based marketing. You cannot be successful if you do not have sales and marketing fully aligned along this journey of ABM. And then finally, it's about engagement, because ultimately it is about driving and building engagement. It's an account-centric approach versus a lead-centric approach that becomes important to that engagement as well.
Yeah. Given your experience in business development as well as marketing, I've heard some sales leaders kind of speak to, account-based marketing and kind of going off of what you said there, that sales and marketing have to work together for an account-based approach to make sense, is that sales has pretty much always been account-based. And it really makes sense that sales and marketing are coming together because they're seeing things through a similar lens. Do you agree with that? Or do you think that's an oversimplification there?
No, I think that is true. And I think there probably is also truth to the fact that often sales is a step ahead of marketing in many cases. That sales teams I've seen, particularly in enterprise B2B marketing, are very more, account targeted. They tend to define a set of accounts they want to go after. And yet you have sort of marketing off to the side still taking this more traditional, inbound approach to generating leads. And inbound can be great, but then you don't have that control over the quantity and the quality of engagement account level. So getting that alignment is critical. And I have seen organizations and been part of organizations where sales is very focused on specific accounts and marketing is still doing inbound.
Yeah. I love what you just said there. You mentioned inbound as being traditional, and that just goes to show the power of category creation as well. Because 10 years ago, the category of inbound was still being developed, right? So anyhow, I just love the way that things are consistently changing. So on that note of consistent change, where things are heading, shifts in the market, what do you see as being the biggest reasons why ABM is so relevant? Why are we still talking about, it seems like there's still buzz several years after this movement, this shift, whatever you want to call it, towards ABM, or at least integrating ABM with your inbound and demand gen efforts. What's the big push for, or what is the big reason for the continued relevancy of ABM in your opinion, Brian?
Well, I think it's largely just because it's a more effective but also efficient way to go to market. I mean, it does depend on the market you're going after. In the case of Ping Identity, we very much sell our identity and access management solution to larger enterprises, large global enterprises. It's a defined set of companies that we are targeting, enterprises that we're targeting. And when you have that defined set and you embrace some of these tactical components of account-based marketing, we've seen it's just a more efficient way to do it. You have more control over the quantity of opportunities you're going after and the quality. The benefits of ABM, though, I think you can probably group into a few things that are a reflection of that efficiency. One is close rate, right? Just by taking a more personalized approach to marketing, you tend to have higher conversions for things like online digital, email, and other things. So that drives more efficiency and should lead to a better close rate as well. I think deal size, what we've seen is as you've engaged with specific accounts with more personalized messaging and an understanding of what those accounts are, and you're really measuring engagement across the account, you're able to drive bigger deals, larger transactions within those accounts. And then finally, account expansion, I think, is another benefit. You have an opportunity to, because you're understanding that account better, know how you might land in the account and then expand. So you can kind of map out a journey of how you're going to approach an account based on your understanding of that account. Mm-hmm. So close rate, deal size, account expansion, all these are just some of the benefits of ABM and why I think it's so relevant today.
Imagine it, a spreadsheet filled with rows and rows of your sales enablement assets. You've devoted 2 years to organizing this masterpiece, only for it to stop making sense. This was Chad Trabucco's reality. As the head of sales enablement at Glint, a LinkedIn company, he's responsible for instilling confidence in his sales reps and arming them with the information they need to do their jobs. However, when his glorious spreadsheet became too complex, he realized he needed a new system. That's when Chad turned to Guru. With Guru, the knowledge you need to do your job finds you. Between Guru's web interface, Slack integration, mobile app, and browser extension, teams can easily search for verified knowledge without leaving their workflow. No more siloed or staled information. Guru acts as your single source of truth. For Chad, this meant Glint sales reps were left feeling more confident doing their jobs. See why leading companies like Glint, Shopify, Spotify, Slack, and more are using Guru for their knowledge management needs. Visit b2bgrowth.getguru.com to start your 30-day free trial and discover how knowledge management can empower your revenue teams.
Yeah. So those are some of the benefits. And you mentioned it does depend a little bit on your market, your product, your sales cycle. What are some of the criteria besides those, or maybe give us a little bit more thinking on those specific criteria on why marketing teams should think critically about ABM and whether it is the right fit for them or the right fit for half of their efforts before they, dive headfirst in?
Sure. I think the criteria to consider before just jumping into ABM is it has to start with a strategic conversation between sales and marketing and often operations as well, right? Which is, okay, what are we trying to achieve in our go-to-market strategy? What are the segments that we're going to focus on? And make sure that there is executive alignment, because without that alignment from the top, I think it can be a fairly unproductive journey for folks. And I've seen that before too. You have some great intentions with a campaign manager and maybe a sales leader who want to take more of an account-based marketing approach. But without that top-down executive support across the organization, it doesn't go very far. And what I've seen is they'll start down this path of ABM and then other things get thrown on their plate, other tactics, a push back towards inbound tactics, for example. So having that executive alignment is absolutely critical as a starting point for account-based marketing. I think also this definition, the way we started the conversation today is an important one to have. Does account-based marketing mean one-to-one, or does it mean, sort of a more strategic approach where it's, one to few or even one to many in terms of how personalized you're going to get in that execution. And often that's a journey. We started, for example, with Ping Identity with a one to few approach, and we're now sort of exploring how to go towards a one-to-one approach at some point in certain geographies. So that clarity of definition of what is ABM is important, and then really important too is just understanding the targets that you're going to go after, and how you're going to define those targeted accounts and what criteria you're going to use. That's one of the most important parts, I think, of building a really strong foundation for account-based marketing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. What's your recommendations, Brian, for folks who are just looking to get started? They don't even have this, hey, we're going one to few and we're moving to one. They're really just at the very beginning stages. What are some of the things that maybe you wish you'd known before getting started with ABM with you and your team?
Yeah, I think, I've learned kind of the hard way in some cases that you have to start with that foundation of account selection and understanding, right? If you start with tactical execution at a campaign level, or maybe implementing some sales or marketing motions to go after accounts without being clear on which accounts you're going after, it's not going to be a very productive outcome or journey, and you won't have the outcome you expect. So start with those accounts, right? What are the accounts you're going to go after? How are you going to define those accounts? Important to this is having a good understanding of what a high propensity to buy account looks like. That's the term that we use. Coming up with a set of criteria that essentially define an account that is more likely to want to engage with you and more likely to purchase from you based on a set of criteria. And that usually takes a cross-functional team. In the case of Ping Identity, and even when we did this when I was at Zora, it was very much around bringing sales, marketing, but also folks from the product team in some cases into the discussion, and operations. A lot of the data around your accounts might sit within the operations team, and you need to do an analysis to understand what are the characteristics of those accounts that are current customers, and how do you define those criteria to identify future accounts or prospective accounts that are going to be a high propensity to buy. So account selection is probably the first thing on that journey to that has to be done right across the company, and you need to stick to that, right? One of the other experiences I've had is that we were pursuing a set of accounts that we had defined, and we found that we had account executives or sales folks that would keep their own sort of set of accounts off to the side and not part of that defined set that we were running our campaigns against. And you just can't have that sort of rogue behavior. You really need everyone on board and agreeing on what those accounts are that you're going to target.
That's really interesting. Can you share any more about that specific situation? Obviously not, names and accounts and pointing the finger at a specific sales rep, but what was kind of the motivation? Did they feel like, hey, I'm doing what I need to with these accounts. I don't want marketing to kind of muck up and do things in my sandbox that I don't really have control over? Or what was kind of the motivation or the factors at play there maybe?
Yeah, it wasn't quite that as the motivation. It was more just disconnect. I think a disconnect between this corporate team, this cross-functional team that was tasked with identifying accounts that had a high propensity to buy, and then individual sales reps who maybe, they agreed with that list, but they also had other accounts that maybe they had relationships with, or that they felt also, based on their engagement, those accounts also look like a high propensity to buy. And the right answer was actually to bring those accounts in and review them and then move them into this more central defined set of accounts that we wanted to target. So it was really, there was no sort of poor intent involved in that. It was more just the fact that they weren't aligned in the process, right?
Yeah.
Or that they didn't understand the process. Yeah. And that's another important point, because when you define these accounts, that needs to be an organic thing. I mean, you need to sort of dynamically be evaluating the criteria used to identify high propensity to buy accounts. And periodically, quarterly or certainly once a year, every 6 months or so, go back, look at the model that you've created and the criteria and modify it, and then redefine what those accounts look like. Because the market changes, and your strengths as a company and what you might look for within an account might change as well. So that needs to be ongoing. Otherwise, it gets stale.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love what you said about bringing product and operations in as well. I've talked to other marketers who definitely agree with, take your model, take maybe some intent data, things like that to determine high propensity to buy accounts. Also look at sales. What accounts have you really not had luck getting into, or which ones, based on your knowledge, have room for expansion. But I haven't heard many people talk about bringing in product and operations for the account selection. What was kind of the push for that, or the reasoning, what kind of brought that to the surface as you guys looked at doing it, Brian?
Well, I think it was really where the data was residing. The operations team and our systems team had access to that data, and also was aware of what data we were able to get access to. And so they become really important in actually the creation of that database, that customer database, and helping to define the model of what criteria we would use to identify those accounts that were more likely to buy. And, the product management team also understand the requirements in the market and the types of companies that they were building products for. So it was definitely a cross-functional, or has been a cross-functional effort to get those criteria defined. You mentioned intent, which is a really great and important part of account-based marketing. The way we've done it is to separate this notion of a more static view of high propensity to buy, meaning you define those criteria, and then list out the accounts you're going to go after, and then look at intent as a way to trigger certain marketing and sales motion. So you might have a set of 100 accounts you want to go after. They all have this high propensity to buy sort of definition to them.
Right.
And then you start to monitor their behavior. And if you see, in our case, we use, Bombora to monitor their search behavior and intent. And then when we would see that intent, it would trigger not only motions within our sales development rep team, but also digital and online and even, personalized web motions to more effectively engage with those accounts. So we use intent in that way as a way to trigger the campaign and the sales motion that follows.
Yeah, I love that. Using the more static criteria to create your larger list of accounts, and then using that intent information then to trigger specific action or timing as you approach those accounts. Because as we've been talking about, and as everybody knows, ABM implementing that for those target accounts, it takes time. So doing it, not only those actions toward the right accounts, but at the right time, that's really where some magic can happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we've seen great results with that. You'll have a set of accounts all know are right for what we provide, and it's just really a question of timing. And when we see that surge in search behavior, for example, being able to provide the SDR team with a script to go after that account and engage with them right at that moment, or to serve up digital display or paid search for those accounts, really has shown to be more effective and a good ROI.
Yeah, I love that, Brian. I love the way at the top of the interview you very succinctly defined account-based marketing, and I feel like we rounded it out really well here in a part that is so key for folks in getting started in account selection, with this idea of static criteria for their whole list, and then using intent data for the timing of specific activities towards specific accounts. This has been a great conversation. I thank you so much for sharing your lessons learned and thoughts with folks. I definitely feel like listeners are going to get a ton of value from this episode. If anybody has any follow-up questions for you, or just would like to stay connected, pick your brain at some point down the road, what's the best way for them to find you or reach out, Brian?
Sure, I'd be happy for people to reach out. They can reach me via LinkedIn or at cbell@pingidentity.com.
Brian, I can't say it enough. This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Great. Thank you, Logan. Thanks for the time.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big Three, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.